That would make another stream. See, and the chat's still there. Yeah, okay. Well. Here we are, everybody. Sorry, technical difficulties. Who do we blame? Let's blame Chilbert today. Nice. So yeah, we are back. Apologies, everybody. I don't know. My internet is messing around today. Maybe because of the heat, but it's not even that hot. I don't know.
It is where I am. 28, 29 here, which is pretty hot.
Right. I'm on 20.
Oh, maybe by now it is, but it feels anyway. But whatever.
But it feels like, I think in chat they're saying that they still don't have any, can't hear anything. So the old stream is dead. Do you have a new stream ID?
Yeah,
I can post it in this chat.
Oh yeah, I should get the see big blazers here. Big blazers here. I'll go through the YouTube thing. Hold on for a second. I'll post it in Percy's chat.
Sweet. Let me get over to Percy's then, and I'll get it from there and post it in this chat and send them over to the new stream, because that's weird that the chat's still running. Broke it good this time, Mackey, but good, I'm telling you.
It happens sometimes. Well, it doesn't happen sometimes, does it? But
it's rare.
It's not very often we go down. Damn.
It's the gremlins. The gremlins are out.
Damn, I wonder if the Zoom. Yeah, the Zoom will be okay. It'll be editable. Nobody will even notice that any of this happened on the downloaded version. So.
Right.
It'll be all right. But did I share? Yeah, I put the link up there in the Percy's chat.
I put it, and I moved it from the chat, the Percy's chat, into the YouTube chat.
Oh.
And we'll see what happens now. Okay. Theoretically, we'll go over there and we'll be good. Yeah, this one's working.
Okay.
The new one.
Yeah, the new one's working.
Yeah.
I got Real Seed Company 2. You see, I just put a 2 on the end of the title and everything's fine. Everybody's fine. We are back. Technically, we're blaming Chilbert this time around, just so you all know that was completely Chilbert's fault. Be more careful, Chilbert, bro. Oh, I'm gonna correct my zoom here as well. This one's Billy's fault. God damn it, Billy. Okay, there we go. Right, I think we're back to normal, and everybody's back here. So, thank you for your patience, everybody. We will continue. Did you say you had a question from Billy there? Monkey?
Yeah, there was a question earlier from Billy. He wanted to know if Angus has been to Turkmenistan or Uzbekistan for seed gathering.
Yeah, so I haven't. Lucas, Lucas Stratzeri, he's done a book about his 2018 trip to Afghanistan, which you can find on the blog at my site, or if you Google him, Lucas Stratzeri. He's done a sort of photography, documentation and history of hash, based around his 2018 trip through northern Afghanistan. And what he this was something he just did spontaneously. We've been talking about it years and years ago when the second time we met up in when we were both doing some seed hunting in India and Pakistan and stuff. Been talking for ages about doing this trip to Afghanistan, and one day he just messages me and says, "Oh, I'm in Bukhara, I think it was, in Uzbekistan, and I've just discovered that I can get a tourist visa for Afghanistan here, and just nip over the border across the whatever it was, the Amu Darya, the Oxus River or whatever it, and to Mazar-e Sharif, you know." So he was in Uzbekistan then, and on the way back he got arrested at the border, ended up in a police station in Uzbekistan. And Uzbekistan is I'd fucking love to have gone there, from a hash point of view and stuff, in 1860, I guess.
Wow.
You used to have an amazing, used to have, famously the best fucking hash. You can read about it because in sort of old Indian Victorian era, things like the Indian Hemp Drugs Commission, which is that this multi-volume description of all the different types of cannabis, like hash and sensimilla and stuff that was available in India then. And some of the real kind of cream, high grade quality, best hashish came from Bukhara in Uzbekistan. But what happened was that the evil Russians invaded in the 1860s, I think it was, and or maybe it was later on than that. But anyway, late 19th century, Russian imperialism, they just took over that bit of Central Asia, and one of the main things early on, what they did was they wiped out all of the cannabis cultivation. But you can see it in the pollen record. You can see that suddenly, like from the archaeological pollen, dig down into the soil, you can see like there's layers and layers and layers of pollen from when there was loads and loads of cannabis growing, and suddenly it just stops in the late 19th century.
Wow.
Because the Russians invaded.
Yeah, Russian imperialism. They were expanding into Central Asia and places.
I always liked Russians up until now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit like everyone everywhere, really. There's some great ones and there's some pretty shitty ones. My ex is Russian. She's lovely. She was in Uzbekistan recently, actually, but it's just not a hash destination. It's quite a nasty police state, politics wise. Uzbeks themselves are great, but police, but politics wise, it's very, very oppressive. Like Lucas hated it when he was there. He was like, man, this place is fucking dead, and beautiful buildings and so on, but the culture that came with that wiped out. If you look on my basically, again, don't want to get all political, but in practical terms, the Soviet Union was very, very oppressive in those kind of places, and the old kind of countercultural, kind of cool forms of Islam, the hash smoking sessions and the big kind of drumming, whirling dervish parties, and all the kind of, just the liveliness of like real traditional Islamic culture. Kind of stamped out because under communism, because it was like, you think of like, you're a dictator, imagine yourself as a kind of evil dictator of Uzbekistan. What do you not want? You don't want large groups of like free thinking men gathering together in big stoner parties discussing shit. It's just not good, really.
The same still applies now, to the government we have now. It's the same thing. They don't want us to be thinking about them and questioning them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a similar paradigm, but it's a whole another level of nastiness in places like that.
For sure.
You end up in a torture cell, that kind of thing, and they really wiped it out. And the same thing happened in Turkey and many places. To that kind of underground culture, countercultural, free thinking forms of Islam that were really closely associated with hash. So in Iran, again, big center for that kind of Sufi type dervish Islam. They banned cannabis in a similar, in fact, earlier on in the sort of 18th century, I think. Don't quote me on this, but they banned cannabis pretty early on. But opium was fine, right? Wow. So there was a huge market and culture for taking opium in Iran. And like, you could talk to Iranians who know their own history, and even to some extent these days, like swathes of the country are addicted to opium. But that was considered to be not such a problem for precisely the reasons that you've said, because people addicted to opium, they're not uppity. They don't have kind of crazy free thinking ideas and radical opinions about stuff. Cannabis was really associated with free thinking, subversive culture, so they banned those sorts. They banned the kind of hash dens, and they banned the kunkers, the sort of hospice. Hospice is a bad word, isn't? It's not really the right word in English, but like a guest house. But like there were guest houses that also kind of attached to them. You had often a kind of a Sufi mystical culture, right? So you could stay at these places for free as you traveled across these bits of Asia. If you were like planning your journey across from whatever, like from Jerusalem to India or whatever. Even if you weren't a Muslim, you could stay at these places called kankas for free food, free lodging, big hash smoke ups each night, kind of drumming kind of trance dancing, drumming parties.
Sounding like my kind of fucking party right there. Shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the vibe. If you go to you can still see this still kind of living in bits of Asia, but you can see it in Pakistan and in India and in Bangladesh, especially in Pakistan. It's still alive there. It never got stamped out. even under the British, you know. Whereas in Afghanistan under the Taliban, it's been pretty effectively stamped out, and in the former Soviet Union bits of Central Asia, it's been wiped out completely, you know. And in Turkey, it's been more or less wiped out, and in Iran, it's been pretty much wiped out. But in Pakistan and India, you go to Shah Jamal, or you go to Sawan Sharif, or you go to Ajmer. These you can see, like, you go to Sawan Sharif, which is a Sufi shrine to Lal Shahbaz Qalandar down in Sindh. Lal Shahbaz Qalandar was a big holy man, you know, picture kind of dreadlocks and stoned out of his mind, red eyes, you know, Sufi holy man, you know, who was famous for being really subversive and drunk and stoned all the time. But you know, he was a saint, you know, like, and you go to his shrine on a Thursday night. It's just, the air is thick with hash smoke. Wow. People are stoned out of their minds, spinning around, doing these crazy kind of dances, and there's transvestite, like transvestites all around, like traditional transvestites, you know, who are part of that whole. It's like you know, it's like a medieval, like you'd have the sort of kind of thing you'd have in England in the sort of you know, the pagan festivals and the sort of Christianized pagan festivals. It's like very it's where people go to just like cut loose, you know. They have a free license to just really behave as they want in that context, you know, because often the traditional culture of the villages is quite oppressive, especially if you're a woman, you know. Right. But you can go as a woman to that and just spin around and just let your hair go and just let it all out, you know. And it's an ecstatic religious experience, you know. And that's the cannabis culture that was actually everywhere across all the countries I've mentioned at one point, you know. That's how a lot of it spread, was through these popular gatherings, you know, that are associated with the actual real popular form of Islam in these countries, which is Sufism. It's not Bin Laden, it's not the Taliban, you know, it's not Wahhabism. The traditional culture of Sufism, of Pakistan, is Sufism, you know. It's much more mystical, can be quite conservative in some aspects, but not necessarily at all, you know, especially not like characters like Lal Shahbaz Qalandar, you know. Not at all, you know.
Is that like a different section of Islam or something? Because I know Sunni Shiite, but is there?
It's not. I mean, it's Sunni, but it's like actual Sunnism as it happens in practice. You know, like in reality on the ground, and not just in a sort of like popular folk religion sense. It's like all everywhere from the kind of aristocratic intelligence in the intelligentsia and the sort of literate the highly literary culture and the artistic culture, right the way down to the village level in terms of social status. You know, it's all Sufi. 99% of it. There's a few. I mean, not 99%, but there are Shia minorities, and there are Ismailis up in Chitral, for example, in Pakistan. But Sunni Islam in reality, in especially going back into the 19th century in places like Pakistan, it's like, yeah, it's Sufi, you know. Sufism is the dominant main form of what you encounter, you know. So like you can go to many, like Shah Jamal as well, if you want to see like a massive fucking smoke up with the most amazing dole drumming, like pounding fucking, if you imagine like, you know, Detroit techno or some really heavy fucking pulsing trancey beats, just amazing to watch it. Like Papu Sayin and Gunga Sayin, the really famous drummers, and it sort of builds up, you know, like you go and it'll start around sometime after midnight is when it starts, you know, and it goes through till dawn, you know, and the whole place is just thick with smoke, you know, and it's sort of really badly lit. It's like being like, really is quite like being in like a Detroit techno thing, you know, like just one kind of murky bulb going, like flicking on and off, you know. And yeah, and then, you know, and it just starts out kind of quite like you know, really similar to a lot of that sort of like hard house and Detroit type beats, you know, and then it builds, like, and
the opening scene to Blade. Remember that?
Say again.
Like the opening scene to Blade.
I don't remember.
That was a great opening scene, man.
Right? Yeah, I don't think I've seen it. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, you have to see Blade. You've not seen
Yeah,
Blade?
it's Wesley
Mate.
Snipes, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
vampire
I've never
movie.
seen
It's
it. Yeah, I've never seen
classic,
it.
classic.
I know what you meant. I'm sure I'd have liked it because I'd have remembered it. If I would remember it if I'd seen it, and I haven't. But
Yeah, like some kind of techno
yeah,
rave.
yeah, but this is like it's all of what I described, but it's happening in a shrine of Shah Jamal, you know, who's
Wow.
another of these Sufi saints, and it's a graveyard, you know, so people are sat around in amongst the graves smoking. It's
Have you been there and seen this? Have you? Have you taken
yeah,
part in
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. I'm
Cool.
describing it from being there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Shah Jamal, like it's in Lahore, which is like in it's a big city in eastern Punjab, like not far from the border with India. And if you go across into India, you can find this similar type of thing in like Ajmer. Ajmer in Rajasthan is a really good place to go for that. And again, there you can in Ajmer, and you can just get bang from the like you can get like cannabis for eating and from the government licensed shops, so it's not even illegal. And then anywhere around the government licensed shops, you'll find there's someone who's selling charas or ganja or whatever, um, you know, illegally. But yeah, it's this is like this is like the cannabis. It's what there is still of the cannabis culture that really was like the second big wave of like globalization, popularization of cannabis. Based on what the evidence is in the historical record, it sort of spread out of places like Afghanistan into places like Syria and Turkey and Egypt. There was a big wave of this in the sort of 13th century, before which people just didn't. There's really no evidence of people knowing anything about it much in places like Syria or Turkey or Egypt. The plant may have been around, but it was really no one commented on it, you know. And then suddenly there's a lot of people saying around the 13th century saying, oh, there's this thing called cannabis or bang or hashish, and it's associated with these you know, quite scandalous behaviors, you know, music and dancing and general naughtiness, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Naughtiness.
Yeah. They're keeping
yeah,
me up all fucking night, these fucking stoners.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, yeah, you know, you can get quite extreme as well. Yeah, I mean yeah, you know,
But you've
wandering around.
travelled quite a lot then, Angus, man. And I'm sure there's many people out there who would like to do the similar kind of travels that you have done, man. What would you recommend to anybody looking at heading out to these places to go and see these cannabis fields and experience some of these cultures?
You mean in terms of destinations, like?
Yeah, and like getting a visa, you know, just being safe, anything they should know about culture, things like that, you know.
The really important thing is to be kind of receptive and sensitive to and not be judgmental, and in my opinion, you know, and sort of listen and yeah, be respectful, I guess, you know. Not meaning like be really restrained and like timid, but just like just be aware as a back, if you're kind of backpacking, that kind of traveling, it can get quite tiring and you know, quite exhausting often, and people can get into sometimes quite sort of negative judgmental state of mind. And I think it's always really important to sort of remember that there's so much going on around you that you don't quite actually really know what it's about, and to not assume things, you know. So I'd say as a kind of a rule, as a general rule of traveling, I think it's quite important, you know, don't judge, and try to be sort of receptive and sensitive to what's around you. Don't assume that you know what's going on, for example, because a lot of people, when they get tired and jaded when they're traveling, they can quite easily slip into a sort of, I mean, Westerners, particularly in Asia, you know, can slip into quite a judgmental state of mind. Oh, this is terrible, and all these people, you know, and it's all
Just tired and grouchy. Yeah.
yeah, not just tired and grouchy, but I mean, particularly really kind of judging the culture. You know, it's different from what I'm used to, and it's not right, and it shouldn't be like this, and you know what I mean? Like assuming that you know why all this different stuff is going on, and
Right.
Just because no one, not even the prime minister in these places has the power to change a lot of what's going on. You know, these are huge countries, huge cities, pretty chaotic and out of control in a way that I think is really hard to grasp until you've actually been there. You know, overwhelming. You know, and yeah, there's a lot of quite brutal stuff happens. You know, animals being treated in ways that you would be quite horrified by sometimes. For example,
Right.
it's quite important to remember that like no one's really got the power to do much about this. Really, you know, a lot of it. And yeah, you know, just don't slip into a judgmental state of mind. But if you want somewhere really cool and like really like if you're looking for an adventurous, exciting experience, Pakistan is brilliant, you know, and there's a lot of good hash around as well that's not hard to find, and it's really like got a Wild West vibe to it. It really, you know, there's a lot of guns around. I don't mean in a dangerous way necessarily. It's these days it's pretty safe, you know, as long as you pay attention to you know, don't go wandering into the tribal agencies by yourself. You know, for example, you'd struggle to do that anyway. Someone would stop you on the way in, but you can go up to the mountains like Chitral, like Hunza, you know, the Karakorums. Spectacularly beautiful, you know, amazing mountains, and really beautiful places like Baltistan, which a lot of it used to be Buddhist. In fact, I mean, all of Pakistan was Buddhist at one point. So you know, Swat Valley, you can and just outside Islamabad, around Rawalpindi, like there's Taxila, these amazing Buddhist ruins and exquisitely beautiful Buddha statues and stuff, and also Mardan over near the Khyber Pass and stuff. Again, just amazingly beautiful Buddha statues and old Buddhist monasteries. And you can go up into Chitral, and they're mostly Ismaili Muslims and very, very laid back. And then there's like pagan tribal minorities in the Kailash valleys and stuff. Yeah, and just a really exciting country, and people are cool, you know, like Pakistanis are very hospitable for the most part, very welcoming. You know, you'll have a problem in some bits where there aren't many guest houses and places to stay, that people just invite you to their house and just give you free food and a free bed for the night and stuff, you know.
No way.
Yeah. That's like Islamic culture, you know. It's really good on stuff like that, you know, especially in the really kind of more traditional bits up in the mountains, you know. It's like you like I have friends in places in these places from having gone there like 3-4 times now, who if I go there, it's like, yeah, they will really go out of their way to try and stop me from booking a room in a hotel. They say, no, you come and stay with me, and it'll be lunch, dinner, breakfast, you know. Of course, like you find a way to return the favor somehow or other, you know. But yeah, I'd sit in the and you know in the guest room, like in you know, with just this delicious like Pakistani dal. If you like Indian foods, Pakistani dal is the best fucking dal. You know, Pakistani naan bread is just the best. It's so good. It's just perfect. It's so delicious. You know, and the best rice as well. Long grain, like kind of basmati rice, but I would say, and I don't want to offend any Indians, but it's like better than the best Indian basmati. And if you have like what's it called, pulao, the you know, you get like sorry any vegetarians who are listening, but yeah, like, you know, goat or like that, and in a big cook the rice with the meat in it, you know, pulao, like that kind of stuff, but done the way it really should be done, and it's fucking delicious, you know. Such good cooking, especially when you've had a few joints of like really good charas and that. Yeah.
Well, that kind of fits into a question that Phil had asked. He said, in your travels, what was the one food that you found surprisingly great tasting that you wish you could have all the time?
Yeah, I do like that. I do like that kind of stuff I was just raving about. I mean, I'd really recommend that, you know, people who can get to this, like I say, Pakistan. If you like a smoke and you like an adventurous travel, and you like good scenery, I really recommend it. In terms of like food, I really like Taiwanese food. No, it's not a big stoner destination, but Actually, the Taiwanese are pretty big smokers as it goes, but it's not got any tradition of it. But I've noticed it's got popular in the UK in the last few years. You know, like bao, you know, the dumplings and that.
Absolutely.
Fucking delicious.
Yeah, they
Stinky
are.
tofu.
Oh, I don't know about that one now. I can't stomach that one.
Oh, really? You're not a stinky tofu fan?
I am not a stinky tofu person.
Okay. So is that from going to Taiwan, or is that a thing in the States as well these days? Or
Oh, you can find it as a specialty thing in the
right.
States. Where I had it, it just wasn't my thing. You know, it's like there's other things on the menu that I would prefer more than that.
Oh no, sure. I mean, it's for perverts, you know. No, I mean, but are you talking about the deep fried stinky tofu? Like
This was an appetizer that came on some kind of a thing, and oh man, I was like, I took a half a bite and said, no, I'm done.
Yeah, I really like
half
it
a
done.
bite, you know.
Well, I was told
I mean,
and I'm usually not that way. I was told that it's an acquired taste, and I just haven't acquired taste yet.
Yeah, no, acquired taste is like one of those expressions that is like, you know, something bad's about to happen.
Well, when the waiter brings it to you with a smile on their face, kind of a devilish smile, you know.
Yeah. The thing is, they probably had a pretty good extractor fan in their kitchen, because the most offensive thing, like if we're talking the fried stinky tofu, that you have it with some kind of kimchi type stuff and some chili, right? When you drop that stinky tofu into the deep fry, it's like the smell. It's like if you imagine someone just dropped a turd into a deep fry.
Oh God!
I didn't want to say that it kind of had
bro.
No, I'm not. But it's like I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just being honest. But
it had a garbage kind of an essence to it, Mackey's best way to describe it. I'm sorry, but I have to say it that way because it definitely had an earthiness about it.
What is
but
it made of?
It's tofu that is. If you imagine you treated tofu like you did Stilton, you know.
Right, I like Stilton. If it's
right,
made, you know, if it goes on steak and shit, you know, that really strong cheese with the steak.
Yeah. So if you like those kind of things, you may enjoy stinky tofu a lot, or you may think it's just gone a little bit far. You know,
like too much, like Vegemite compared to Marmite kind of thing.
The best way to do it, if you ask me, is like if you imagine, it's the best way to have stinky tofu. I think on balance is they prepare like a really, really fucking really spicy, like, you know, really spicy Korean food kind of levels of spiciness, like really 11 out of 10 spiciness, a kind of a soup with all kinds of chilies, and it's like a winter thing in Taiwan, like when it gets really pretty cold in, you know, December, January, and you can smell it hundreds of meters away down the street. But they put kind of Stilton-sized like lumps of you know, that level of funkiness of stinky tofu in this broth, and it's fucking delicious if you ask me. But like I say, you know, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That was to be able to smell it from that far away. I don't know. But,
oh, hundreds of meters.
Random tangent about random shit. We do this.
Yeah.
We do this.
It's yeah, that, and yeah, I mean, there's just Asia, man. There's a lot of good food around. I love somtam, like a somdam, like dam mak hung, you know, in Lao. Papaya salad, real spicy green papaya salad. That with some sticky rice and some barbecue chicken, fucking great. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and it's all good stuff to eat, like when you've got the munchies, you know, after you know.
After the hash,
yeah. Awesome.
Just hash wherever you go. Makes
well, in Laos and Thailand, it's all ganja, but yeah, same deal. Yeah, yeah, and that spicy food, you know, I love that kind of like I say, 11 out of 10. Just like it's like they're almost trying to push it as far as they can with the flavor intensities, you know, with real somdam, real green papaya salads. Again, it's got some of those slightly dodgy tastes in there that give it the sort of three-dimensional taste experience. So you know, you've got your shredded green papaya, and you've got maybe some sort of mini dried shrimps, and you've got your garlic and your sort of all kinds of different flavorings in there. But the base of the sauce that it's in is kind of a fermented fish paste, you know.
Oh God, this isn't sounding good.
it's fucking delicious. It's fucking delicious, but it's like you've got to get it. You've got to know how it's got to be done right, you know. And it's the same with a really good Thai green curry, right? Really good Thai green curry that's not like the kind of supermarket one. It's got a bit of it. It's the bala or badek is the name of it. It's this again, like, you know, big jars full of like river fish that are fermented for like years down to this like dodgy fish sauce, you know. The right amount of it in there is what takes it from being nice to being kind of exquisite, you know.
Right.
Like
it's
like
the whole
a
fermented fish sauce that it just doesn't sound appealing. You know, fish sauce,
yeah,
maybe fish sauce, but fermented too. I don't know.
But we have all kinds of stuff like that in our food, you know. Like, I mean, Stilton's the obvious choice, you know, but there's all kinds of other stuff that's around it. In every cuisine has its sort of and it's, you know, all that stuff with the, like, you know, the microbiome. It's good for your digestion to have all this weirdness going on, and yeah,
Right.
Yeah, man. I tried sauerkraut recently for the first time after being encouraged to by Chris Trump. Yeah, man, I like that shit, and kimchi too. I like kimchi as well.
Yeah, if you like kimchi, you'd like all this stuff, I reckon. You know, it's just it's describing it. You're like, oh, fucking what? Get that away from me. But
you know,
when you taste it, it's like, oh, that's actually pretty fucking nice. You know, if it's done well. You know?
Sounds like it tastes like ass. I'll probably enjoy that. You know.
Yeah. No. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shit. Wait, what else can we talk about here? Do we have any more questions in the chat?
Yes, there is one. It says,
There's one from
right here,
Chilbert
Chilbert wanted to know how much is top quality hash going for in North Pakistan right now, Angus?
I haven't been there recently enough to give you a good answer on that, but you would be pleasantly surprised by how cheap it is compared to what you can pay for a kilo in or whatever, or 100 grams or whatever, or a toller. It's, I mean, cheap, you know. So like, if you, last time I was there, when I went round to the sort of local main hash guy in Chitral town, he was selling what I think were probably 1/8 of an ounce type weights for, it was like 150 Pakistani rupees, which is like £1 or so. A couple of dollars at most, probably like $1.50. And that's good stuff, you know. He'd actually done something that I've never seen anywhere else before, which he'd taken some blonde Garda, like you know, first grade Tira stuff that's but that's not got the ludicrous level of stickiness that like really good Afghan or really good Tira has. You know, so it had a slightly graininess to it. It was still like, it was good to the level where, you know, like really good hash, if it's blonde hash, will start to sort of darken and turn more like the color as it sort of oxidizes or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, to me it's a sort of, this wasn't
you
dry,
chop it again and it's blonde again in the middle, that kind of thing.
If you got it in your finger and if you got it in your hand and or with your thumb and in your palm and you sort of pushed it around, it would very quickly just turn a lot, like the color would darken. Anyway, my point is, I'm just going to get across that this was good hash, but it was, because some people will have seen blonde hash that's like really sandy and dry, you know, like not very good Moroccan or something, right? Anyway, this was good hash, but he'd also then, for some reason, this guy had like bought some really good, like kind of Afghan dark, real sticky hash and mixed the two together. You know, I don't know why he did it. Anyway, but this was good stuff, and you could buy it in like balls of it, which I guess were like 3 grams, 3.5 grams, probably, for like 150 Pakistani rupees. This is from memory, but it was dirt cheap, you know.
Yeah, cheap as fuck.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I think Chilbert's looking at tickets right now.
Probably so.
Yeah, man. You don't suppose well, we can't really talk about growing your own, can we? But when are you going out to these places again next, like India and search for seeds?
Next week.
Next week, damn.
Yeah. It's you know, it's as you get towards what's it called, autumn equinox, you know, that's the beginning of when people, like, in fact, some places they'll be cutting things already. So Lebanon they'll already be bringing down fields, you know, in Bekaa Valley and stuff, because their plants are really early. Like the Lebanese land races are what people call semi-auto, you know, so they will go into flower on like 18 hours of light, you know. And they're done. Sometimes the people will harvest there, as depending on how early they plant. They'll be harvesting like middle of August already in Lebanon, and then hand rubbing in the Himalayas, like as soon as the plants are far enough into flower, which they will be by the end of this month for sure. Like even like, you know, like I say, sort of September, third week of September, people will definitely be already starting hand rubbing in bits of the Indian Himalayas, the more northerly bits. You know, it's very early to cut to do it, but people will start making the odd piece of hash as early as that in some of these places. So yeah, I'm headed off. I've got some stuff I need to do before I can actually go seed collecting. But yeah, I'll be, you know, starting to collect some wild material like we were talking about at the beginning, you know, because it's quite, now that I know I've got people who will be able to actually make use of this, it makes a lot of sense to grab it while it's possible before it gets fucked up, you know.
Yeah, it's gonna be so cool to see what comes of it in the future, you know, when you're getting all these different strains from the wild.
Wild stuff generally, like as it is now, without anyone having done any work on it, it's very, very seldom used for it's very seldom harvested for stuff for people to get high from. You know, there are bits of India particularly and Punjab, you know, so in Pakistan and in India, where it grows fucking everywhere in just a way that would blow your mind. It's like seas of it, you know, and whole cities. There's like Islamabad's notorious, you know, for just the sheer amount of wild cannabis growing around, like weedy cannabis growing around, you know. It's really, really, you know, something about Punjab. It's got really good land. Is basically what it's about. It's really good agricultural land. And that is one place where people do harvest from the wild plants to make bhang, in the sense of the most basic product, you know, which, so they'll make bhang pakoras or bhang lassis and that kind of stuff, and for eating and drinking and so on. And tandai is a really popular thing. So that is one area where it's harvested, but you never get like high grade cannabis from wild weedy plants, you know. You certainly can't make ganja from it. You can't make real ganja from wild bhang, you know. Ganja has to come from a ganja landrace, you know. That's if you pick the only people who you will see harvesting the flower off wild cannabis to smoke the flower are like sadhus, wandering holy men, you know, with the dreads and all that. And you will see them doing that, but not around busy places like around the city or something. You'll see them, they'll go up into the Himalayas, and they'll find somewhere really quite remote where the plants are clean, you know, because if you imagine you've got this sticky flowers of a cannabis plant next to a road, it just picks up all kinds of gack and shite, you know.
Damn, yeah,
Right.
all the brake dust and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So like no one, when now and then, like you'll see and I can't remember who it was, but there's a guy on Instagram who I talked to this about, and he was sort of, you know, they're just like, oh wow, you know, when they first arrive in like in Nepal, India, and they're like straight out into this patch of like stuff, you know, because it just really is like, what is this fucking cannabis plant doing growing here, you know? Really excited, and all the locals are looking at them like, what are you doing? Don't fucking touch that. It's like, you know, because it's filthy, you know. But yeah, you'll see sadhus with bags of flower from wild plants, but it's full of seeds, you know. And so they have to sit there and like pick all the seeds out, and then they'll mix it with some tobacco and put it in a chilim. And it's just like, it's pretty unlikely to get you super high. They'll be smoking it just for like, it's almost like having a cup of tea or something, you know.
Right.
And they call that pati or bhang. It's not ganja, you know. It's not real ganja at all. And then you'll see there will be good patches in the mountains around like Parvati and Kulu, where Chobot was talking about. So around Milana village and stuff, or over the pass from there, over Chandrakarni, there are areas around there where you can make really nice, really nice to smoke, really good jungly charas by hand rubbing the wild plants that grow around there. So in amongst the kind of apple orchards, because there's a lot of apple cultivation up there, you will get patches of stuff that the local villagers will go up and hand rub. You'll spend an afternoon basically, or a morning, wandering around, hand rub this bit, hand rub that bit in sort of late September through October. By the end of the day,
how much can you make?
Yeah, it takes a while. It's a very, very inefficient, very slow process, hand rubbing, to do it well. And a good experienced person can, they could make a toller, I guess. But to make really good, which is like 10, 12 grams, but a really good high grade, like cream quality charas, it's a much, much slower process, maybe like 3 grams, 5 grams. It really depends how good you are. I've never bothered to even learn how to do it because it's just mind-numbingly tedious, slow work,
Yeah.
If you get the Nepalese, particularly, a lot of them will travel from Nepal into India as kind of migrant laborers to do this work.
Wow.
And a lot of them have just an amazing ability just to produce incredibly good stuff at a pretty high speed,
Right.
Yeah.
I'd love to give that a shot, man. Just making some charas in the middle of some field somewhere.
Yeah, and it's like I say, even that jungly stuff, it's like that wild, charas. It's I mean, the reason why it's good, that stuff around there, is because it's really near fields of like good land races, right? So it's not. I mean, it's a chicken and egg scenario. So of course, it's like there's good land races there that have been domesticated from the original wild populations there, sometime ages and ages ago. But they've then sort of dropped pollen back onto the wild plants. So you have these quote unquote wild plants around there which produce pretty good charas, but they're not really wild. They're like sort of intermediate, really. And but it's very different. Like the jungly charas you get around Chandrakarni in Kuli there, it's very, very different from the charas over the pass in Milana. The jungly is like, it's not as sticky. It's got a very different smell. It's much more kind of citrusy smelling, and it's a little bit harsher. It's like on your throat. It's not as refined, but it does have quite a distinct effect. Like it's kind of more zingy. It's a bit more speedy kind of feeling compared to the Milana village stuff. Yeah. I really like it, but the problem is that I remember going up there and buying like a big kind of slab of it, like a 10, 12 gram slab, not like 150
Right.
gram slab.
I was thinking then like a slab.
But yeah, I mean, he had slab amounts. It was like this guy. He had a house just around near this orchard area I'm talking about, and he had his own fields of landrace stuff, but he also would go up and make jungly as well. And he, like, not much negotiation. He sold me like a toller for like 400 rupees, which back then was like four quid, for sort of like a 10, 12 gram piece of it. But I went up there after that a few years later, and like there been a bit of a craze about jungly amongst the kind of cannabis aficionado Westerners who went around those places. And in the last few years, like many times, they've tried to, like, local guys around there who had jungly have tried to sell it to me for like the same as or more than the price of the really good cream charas,
Right.
And you end up in these pointless kind of negotiation things that go on and on and on. You're saying, look, it's jungly, man. It's not as good as the field stuff. And they're like, no, but it's much rarer, and you can only find it here. And it's like they've understood the kind of naturalness discourse that a lot of connoisseurs of tea or connoisseurs of this and that, like wild tea in Taiwan or in China used to be super cheap, but in the last 10, 15, 20 years or so, there's become a fad for like wild tea,
Yeah.
So like you can pay for like pu'er tea, like this tea from southern China that comes from places where tea grows wild, you can pay hundreds of dollars for like a big cake of wild tea from southern China, right? But it used to be like, again, I went to villages where they have this tea in like northern Laos on the Chinese border, and they were all laughing. You know, they were like, we used to go into the jungle and pick this from the wild tea trees, and we take a couple of kilos down to the Chinese guy in the village. These guys were like tribal minorities from the village, from the mountains, who were picking this tea in the jungle. They take it down to the Chinese guy in the town, some old Chinese dude who drank tea, and unlike them, you know, and they swap him this couple of kilos of tea for like a chicken, you know, right? And they're like, now we can sell this for like $150 wholesale, you know, and we used to trade this for a few chickens, you know, and it's the same with jungly charas. It's like jungly charas, it should be much, much cheaper, you know, but there's a thing for it now, and there's a kind of a culture around it. Like you get real kind of jungly fiends, you know, who just love this wild charas, and they're like, it's natural, it's pure, it's sort of, you know, and yada yada yada, you know, like that. And it does have a really nice buzz, you know. But it's you know, it's got resin content wise, it's less than the landrace stuff, and really it's the resin content that hash is traditionally judged by on quality in the markets in India going back, you know, 100 years or so. It was all about how much oil it had as much as anything else.
You tried a lot of different hash from all over the world, man. What would you say was the best hash you've ever smoked? Can you put your finger on something? Was it just too many of them that were just too good?
You know, I'm always saying, like, you know, variety is the spice of life. It's what is really nice is to have the choice of having all kinds of different things. One day you feel like this, one day you feel like that. Things that I like, you know, like I'm quite into tea. It's something, as you just can tell from me what whiffling on about that. But you know, on my shelf, I've got fuckloads of different kinds of tea from Taiwan and China and Laos and all kinds of places. And I just like being able to like, oh, today I'll have some of this, today I'll have some of that, you know. And for me, that's the same. So I guess there's two ways you can gauge like what's really good. So in terms of just sheer quality, you know, oiliness, density of aroma, production quality, purity, you know, then Northern Afghanistan, that's the best, you know, like really good Mazari, Balkhi, Charas, you know. That's got the deepest culture of it. You buy first grade, first Garda Balkhi, first Garda. That's just pure resin glands, more or less nothing else in there, you know. It's really, and you put a flame to it and it's bubbling, you know, straight off, you know, like good modern Western extracts and stuff. So that's the best in that sense. But in terms of the buzz and the feeling, Himalayan Charas is really good. If you ever listen to Howard Marks talking about what he really misses and stuff, or missed because he's dead now, but he would always rave about Nepalese, you know.
Right.
And yeah, that's in terms of production quality. Actually, I would say the best stuff I've seen in Nepal is much better than Parvati and Malana and stuff. And it has a better buzz as well because it's not been knackered by Dutch hybrids, you know?
Right.
And
then with the Nepalese temple balls, is that kind of hash?
Yeah, the temple ball thing is a bit like Thai stick in the sense that it was a product rather than a strain, and I think it was a product that like the Nepalese were kind of encouraged to make by Westerners as much as anything else. But if you go back into the historical records of Nepalese charas in terms of what the British and the Indians were writing about it in the late 19th century, when there was this huge explosion in popularity of hash in India. So you have these huge cities like, you know, Lahore, and talking India pre-partition, you know, Lahore and Lucknow, and these massive cities with where there was a lot of demand for hash. They would be importing the Nepalese hash from the mountains straight south down to cities like Lucknow, and the price, you know, that it could fetch was like its weight in gold, you know. This charas, you know, and that sounds like an exaggeration, but then you look at the Thai stick prices in the 60s, it was like even more expensive than gold, you know.
And it was demand, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, it was a first class product, you know. But Nepali charas, like you've got really kind of two basic types, in the sense that there's the two types of landrace that that are used for making charas in Nepal. There's the multi-purpose type, which is much more sort of traditional in a sense. It's hand rubbed. Once it's been hand rubbed, if you're there at that time of year when they've been producing it, it's pretty cold at night. It's pretty cold in the morning. It doesn't really warm up until sort of 10:30, 11. And when it's cold, sticks of this traditional hand rub charas, done the way that they would make it for themselves in the villages, they're not sticky. They set like a resin. Sets, and if you tap it on the table, it sort of like it makes a sort of a ringing noise. You know what I mean? Bing. It's sort of like it's almost glassy. It shouldn't be glassy, because if it's really glassy, that means it's 2 or 3 years old.
Right.
But if it's been
That's
freshly
all it
made,
goes glassy. That's crazy.
Like shatter?
it sets, and it's cold. It's cold enough in even the really sticky Parvati Milana cream type stuff, or the Afghan stuff. On a cold morning, 12 degrees C or whatever in the morning, you can dent it with your fingernail, right?
Wow.
But it's not sticky like that. But once you get a flame on it, the Afghan stuff will just really quickly melt. This traditional Nepali stuff, the hand rub stuff, old school style sticks of it, because they roll it into sticks. They roll it into sticks, or they roll it into braids. They don't roll it into balls for the most part. It's rolled it into sticks because it's easy. It's just that's the shape. It just comes off your palms. Like if you force your hands together to get the resin off your hands, comes off in a sort of a stick. And sometimes they'll braid it into sort of a triple helix or a double helix.
Nice.
Depending on the area, they've got different ways of doing that. But if you hold a flame to this stuff, it softens very quickly. But it doesn't melt, because there's quite a lot of in the process of hand rubbing the flowers, unless you do it incredibly carefully and make cream charas. If you do it at the normal pace that a sane person would do it, if they just know they've got to get through their field, like I've got to hand rub this whole field in the next week, right? And it's mostly women who do it. It's in the village, if it's not like a commercial operation, and it's like tedious fucking work, and a lot of bract, a lot of little bits of leaf and calyx and so on will come off with the resin. So what you've got is really kind of a fused piece of resin and plant matter, and the obviously higher grade, more resin, less plant, cheaper grade, it's kind of got a fair amount of plant in there. The good thing about it though is that it's like I don't smoke tobacco. I fucking hate tobacco, so it's really good to put into a pipe this kind of slightly lower, like a lower grade of village resin, because the high is the same as the high grade stuff. In fact, it's often like a more of a sort of like the kind of high that I like from the slightly lower grade stuff. You've got whatever other phytochemicals have come in into the resin with the plant matter, slightly changed the buzz. But the point is, it smokes really well in the pipe. It doesn't. It's not so high grade that it just whooshes down into the stem and just blocks the fucking pipe up.
Yeah.
It'll actually stay in the bowl and burn more like a bit of bud burns. And so it's really convenient for you can just whack it in a little mini pipe and chuck the pipe away once you've got to get on the plane or whatever.
That sounds fucking delicious. I haven't had hash for so long, man. I love hash.
I really recommend it. Yeah, like the raving, going on and on about all these places. In my mind, it's like I'm hopefully encouraging people to go and do their own trips.
Yeah, I think it's like a mecca for stoners to go and do that kind of thing. Just go see these spiritual places, all to do with cannabis and shit.
100%. Like the thing, like I was recommending Pakistan, and I was recommending the other place I'd recommend in terms of a really good place to do this kind of trip is Kumaon or Garhwal, or probably more than Nepal. Kumaon and Garhwal I really recommend because they have beautiful scenery, and they're also very they have that kind of sacramental, sacred geography thing. They're very, very important for the shrines, and like these are little small shrines up in the mountains where you can go and like you're pretty likely to be the only foreigners there if there's a couple of you, you know, or unless everyone else you're going to meet is like the local people from the mountains or wandering sadhus. So you'll go up to some like fire that they've got going. They have their little sacred fire, like square-sided fire, and they'll just be sitting around, you know, smoking chillums and that. And you know, now and then you'll run into some sadhus who speak actually really good English. You know, often they don't, but sometimes they do, like speak surprisingly fluent English. You know, and you can just sit there and just natter with them about what they're doing, and you don't have to be into the spirituality to really you kind of assimilate the vibe. You sort of absorb the vibe, and it's like they've got a life that is based around totally different priorities from most of us. You know, it's really refreshing just to sort of sit with someone who has just decided that it's just a load of old bollocks what most people are doing, and they've just signed out. You know, they've just tuned out, and they're like their whole life is it's much freer, you know, and it's just really refreshing to sit and smoke with people like that and just be like, oh yeah, you just like you know, actually none of what this stuff that we're also concerned about day to day is not a lot of it's that actually really that important at all, you know. You could just drop it all, you know. And they've kind of done that, and like I said, that's not even really spiritual per se. It's just that India and Nepal and places and Pakistan, they have a space for that in their culture. If you want to do that, there is that route. You can just go and do that route, and the big part of the lifestyle for many of the people who choose to do that is cannabis. You know, sometimes it's like it is a kind of smokers club thing, pretty much. Like friends of mine who are sadhus have said that to me, like, yeah, it's a smokers club. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Yeah, but also it's like they're smoking the cannabis because it kind of it makes that lifestyle a lot easier. You know. Yeah. It's quite hard work, you know, sleeping out under a blanket next to a fire in the mountains in December, you know, not eating a huge amount of food necessarily, not many like mod cons and luxuries.
At least you've got a joint.
It makes a big fucking difference, you know. Takes the aches and pains away, and gives you that spacious sort of freedom of mind, you know, that it can be easy to lose when you're under physical hardship, you know.
Yeah, Chuba, he had an interesting question as well. But first, I wanted to ask you about you know, this is some interesting shit that you're talking about, traveling to all these places. What do you do? Some kind of vlog, or you know, some YouTube channel? Do you make videos of these? Because it would make a fucking epic series to see all these journeys.
Yeah, I have quite a lot of footage, and the places I've just been talking about have a lot of footage from. And one of my brothers is a very good filmmaker. You know, he was at NFTS, which is one of the really good filmmaking places, National Film and Television School.
Right.
He makes mostly kind of nature documentaries, and just as he was getting ready to apply to go there, we went and shot a whole load of material in Kumaun, and during the harvest season, and then before that I'd shot some material with a German friend of mine as well, and just it was in my mind even as I was talking to you as well, you know, that it's really what you need is a lot of good photos or video of it, really, to really get it across. And it's something I want to do. You know, it's on my list of things to do. Is to do that, or to find some people to do that. There are challenges, you know.
Chilbert volunteered, by the way. Chilbert said,
yeah, if he's good with a camera, I do know some good photographers who as well, you know. So if people are interested who really are like good, you know, take good photos or good video, you know, like send me an email, you know, and with a link to some of your work and that. I'll certainly be interested to
awesome.
to talk about it.
Yeah, a nice group holiday to India there and record a documentary. That sounds like a lot of fun. You know.
It is fun. It's also hard work. You know, don't have any illusions about it. I went up to some villages, like I say, with my brother and another filmmaker and an Indian friend of ours who speaks good English and speaks the local Kamani dialect. There are various Kamani dialects. The challenge was that midway through when we were shooting, the families who'd agreed to let us film them had like a real change of heart and were like, actually, we're kind of scared to be seen in this video, you know. So you need to pick your place quite carefully because people, if they like you, may say, oh yeah, yeah, and then they're suddenly like, hang on, who's going to see this, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's not as straightforward as all that. And then I mean, the Indian friend of mine, Sanjay, who was there, he's quite traditional in his mentality. He's very, very religious and Hindu, and for him, the challenge mostly was, apart from the discomfort of sleeping in where he was sleeping, was he was kind of scared, you know, because these places where you have a lot of cannabis growing like that in the mountains, they're really out on the sort of the edge of the wilds, you know. So he was scared about leopards and scared about, you know, this and that, but he was also scared about, you know, the local spirits and the local. And it sounds silly, but
yeah.
In his mind, that's where we were. We were like in the place where all the kind of ghouls and demons hang out around the jungles and stuff, you know. And at the time when we were there was also like the harvest festival, Durga Puja, the festival of the Mother Goddess, which kind of coincides with the cannabis harvest and all of that. And but they're also kind of appeasing the local village god, and often the local village gods are like really quite malign characters. They like one friend of mine who's not religious says that essentially the kind of villagers are held hostage by these gods. Often they have to offer them all kinds of different stuff, and they're kind of squandering a lot of their money on like appeasing this god. You know, it sounds nuts, but when you're in these places and it's dark and there's no electricity and it's like midnight, and they're often having these kind of possessions. You know, like there's a kind of a local shaman type character who gets possessed by one of these gods and starts writhing around and things. We filmed all of this kind of stuff, and
cool.
And yeah, once you're there for a bit, you know, you start to lose your bearings a bit and wonder, you know, what exactly is going on. But yeah, after a week or so of filming, like Sanjay was like, I want to go home. In the middle of the night, you could see like after 4 or 5 days he hadn't fucking slept a wink. You know, he was awake,
terrified.
terrified of the leopards and the ghouls and the goblins or whatever.
Yeah. Damn, man. Yeah, you would want to go home.
He did, yeah. I was fine, but yeah.
It is dangerous. I mean, tigers live in India, don't they? Are they around?
There are still tigers around. Not that many. Kumaon, where I've been talking about, is famous for historically famous for its tigers. There's some books by a guy called Jim Corbett, whose name is the name of the tiger reserve that's just down on the plains just below Kumaon, Corbett National Park. But he was this British colonial British Indian, you know, as in he's sort of born in India as far as I know, or at least lived all his life there. And he was famous for going around and hunting shooting the man-eating tigers, because you'd have these like the man-eating tiger of Rudraprayag, whatever, who just ate loads and loads and loads of villages, you know. And he'd sort of swashbuckling white guy with his, you know, tweed jacket or whatever, would leap over the mountainside and track these tigers and shoot them. But yeah, you still get leopards, and some bits you get like big wolves in that as well, bears in some bits. But yeah, leopards are if you were to see a big cat these days, it would likely be a leopard. And there's quite a lot of because of the habitat loss and people moving deeper and deeper into what was the leopard's territory, you still do get you know, small children, small women getting carried off by leopards now and then. Yeah.
Have you ever seen any while you're out there?
Leopard, no. I've seen, tracks of things that had gone across the roads and the paths just before I'd got there, and
Mm.
yeah, I've seen, but mostly not. No, I mean, there's lots of amazing animals that you do see, lammergeiers and vultures and langurs and easy things to see like that. But unless friends of mine describe to me walking in places where I've been, and I've had like when I've been like seed collecting in places like Langtang in Nepal, I've set out very early in the morning because I haven't had a good night's sleep, and I thought, fuck it, I may as well just start off again. And the house that I've been staying in, the Nepali guy kind of waking up and saying, "You're fucking crazy. What are you doing going outside now? There's leopards all over the place," But they didn't seem interested in me, so yeah.
Damn, that'd be scary as fuck. Going out in the wild, but it's an experience at the same time, isn't it? You gotta go and experience these things, man.
Yeah,
Especially on a kind of journey like that.
yeah. I mean, it's all part of the fun, I reckon. I mean,
Mm.
obviously getting eaten by a leopard isn't fun, but the general kind of wildness of these places is yeah, it's best enjoyed um either with like a good friend who is a good traveler, because let's be honest, like a lot of people aren't very good at traveling and don't actually really enjoy it very much. But if you've got someone who's pretty laid back, it's good, or just by yourself, doing a lot of these trekking paths, you can have a much more you have a much stronger sense of the place that you're in when you're by yourself. You can
Mm.
really soak it all up.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
get on Google Earth and check out some of these places later on, man. See what it's like Street View and all that shit. Check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
See what it's like, man.
they're all on there. I often wonder what they do in terms of when they take the shots, and maybe they just don't do it when the fields are around. Because
Mm.
I've looked on places where I know that you get huge fields, and it's been like not obvious. I mean, there's been no sign of them, because the colour's really obvious. Places like Manipur, when you take off from Imphal Airport and you go immediately out of the valley straight over these mountainsides, and like the side of the mountain that's facing the town, it's all green, dark green jungle, and then the side that's all facing away from the town when no one can see it, lime green, just
Ganja plants just need a little bit of
loads of
CalMag.
ganja
Yeah.
fields. Yeah, yeah,
Damn, some incredible sights, man.
yeah.
I think it would be a good pilgrimage to go on, and it looks like Chilbert's thinking about doing it. I'm sure many
Mm.
people have been inspired to do it as well by all your cool stories, man.
Oh, I hope so, because that's the most important thing, not just me going on about it. It's like, yeah, like it really is. It's something worth doing if you can find a way to get there. Um, it's very worth it. It is that bit of the world. It really is like you've kind of teleported to a very, very different reality. People
Mm.
just living by a very different set of ideas about what life is about
Yeah.
compared to England. And it's a great way to you can get quite claustrophobic life in the UK, and it's a great way to um, uh,
Just remember,
decompress.
yeah, just remember there's a bigger world out there, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
not all
just a whole
about
set of
this.
rules that just knowing that other people have a different way of doing things. That's what Herodotus, the Greek guy who was the first person to sort of write and describe people getting high on cannabis.
Mm.
His big thing was that what he was really excited about is just that humans can develop societies which are based on entirely different priorities. One culture can just do things in a completely different way from another one,
Mm.
and especially in the more traditional bits of these kind of cultures, not just India, but Nepal and Laos and Pakistan and so on. You do have people whose world is just operating on a totally different set of rules, and just the mere possibility of that in itself, saying like what we think of in our world in the West, whatever, as being necessary and important, and it just has to be like this. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be like this at all. If you want to go and live in an entirely different way according to a totally different set of rules, you can, and you realize that reality is that free. It is that up for negotiation. you are under no obligation other than just the only, the one, even money, the one big important thing in the sense of the one thing you need to exist. Actually, if you really want to, there are cultures and places where you can just drop that as well. You do, of course, have a whole new set of pressures you have instead. So you're not exchanging like an unfree condition for like a 110% free condition, but you are sort of you have that option. It's always there, and just being around people who've made that choice in itself is very refreshing, to hang out with like sadhus and stuff, like friends of mine, and it's like I love to go and do that because it's like a kind of a breath of fresh air, in that sense.
Chubba says Nepal 3-month visa about £150. Yeah.
Is it that much now? That's quite excessive. They've jacked up the prices. You can get a visa at the airport in Nepal for a month. I don't remember what they charge for it. If it's as much as 50 quid a month, that's got a lot more expensive. India, you can get a 1-year e-visa for $40.
Damn.
Yeah, with multiple entry.
Then it's just getting the flights, man. How much are flights?
Yeah. It depends. I don't know what it is return to India these days, because it really goes up and down depending on the oil price and stuff like that, or just depending on which airline is discounting
Who
it.
said anything about return, bro?
Right. One way, 250 quid, 200 quid if you find a cheap one, I would have thought. Yeah, it's not that expensive compared to what you might think. It's not a whole lot more expensive than going to bits of Europe. It used to be, 350 quid return, 400 quid return. I guess it's more like 500 quid, but I reckon you could get under 500 quid return if you wanted.
Wow, that's not bad.
If you look for it, yeah. And then the thing is, it's like it's not as cheap to be there as it used to be. The era of like going to India for 2 years and like living on 4 or 5 quid a day is kind of over, unless you really are like willing to really live, like in an ashram or whatever, and eat like one meal a day. It's just not as cheap as it used to be, but you can still spend, people still do spend a lot of time there. Just like the people I used to meet most when I went there 20 plus years ago was social workers. You'd meet loads of social workers. I mean, English people. I mean, when I ran into an English person, they'd very often be social workers, because they were just like, they'd do like a year of social work and just burn out, and then they'd go and like hang out in the mountains or hang out in Goa or Kerala or wherever,
Right.
or,
yeah. So for like meditation and shit like that.
Yeah, just like get their fucking head back together before they went back to the social work. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think.
All right, there was a couple more chats, the questions that came up in chat. If you want to take a look at some of these.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, if people are.
Now you kind of went on one of Chilbert's, because he was wanting to know about the history of what is a temple ball made by the sadhus, as opposed to what we call a temple ball in America made by Calis. What is the difference between a real temple ball and a California temple ball?
Well, most of what you see if you go to the villages, the way that the people, and I mean like a village up in the mountains in Midwest Nepal or whatever, where they just where you're getting charis that they have made for themselves, that isn't something that they've been producing to sell to a smuggler or anything.
Yeah,
it's not rolled as a ball; it's rolled into sticks or into braids. So like a kind of a finger, it's like a finger-sized piece. So typical kind of weight would be sort of 7 grams, 10 grams at the most sticks.
Yeah.
Some would be uneven sizes, just depending on, like, they may have just decided, I've had enough of rubbing charis now, and they just get a little 3-gram stick, whatever.
Right.
And it's mostly the women who do it, and they mostly do it in the morning. So they'll go down to the field, which is often just like directly below their front of their house. Cut a few plants down in late October or like second week of November, as the sun is coming up, and as the sun gets a bit of power in it, 8-9 o'clock ish, they'll start hand rubbing on the normally on the steps outside the front of their house. They might have like kind of, well, not steps, sorry, the like they've got paving slabs like of the local, which are normally kind of dark colored, and they pick up the heat pretty well from the sun. So they'll leave the plants, the freshly cut plants, on there next to them, and just sit down with a sheet or something on the ground in front of them to pick all the seeds up that fall out of the plants as they're hand rubbing. And you know, the sun's just made the resin soft enough and loose enough, and that'll just layers of that will build up on their hand, and they'll do that for a couple of hours until they just had enough. At which time they may have made a few sticks, you know, and spend 2 weeks or so doing that until they've got the whole field
2
harvested.
weeks.
Yeah, it takes a couple of weeks to get through a field of, I'd have thought, because they'll do a bit of that in the morning, and then they'll have to go and do other stuff, you know, like cut at that time of year they'll be going to cut what do you call it, like fodder and stuff for their animals, and bedding for the animals for the winter, you know. Which they will live under the house. The cows and the goats and stuff will live like under. The bottom floor will be for them, and then the kitchen and the bedrooms are over them, because the warmth from the animals gives
goes up.
And but yeah, temple balls. Was it like Lawrence Cherniak? I don't know how you pronounce his name. There's some hash books from back, sort of late hippie trail era hash books, and he was big. Like, he was really like made a big thing about, you know, temple balls being this thing, and how you had to have this kind of sealed outside to them and stuff. But the problem with doing, the reason that they do these somewhat thinner sticks, not thin, but the big risk with hand rubbed hash, because it's made from fresh plants, right, is that there's a fairly high water content in a fresh piece. And because of this, just the sap and stuff, particularly if they've pressed a little bit more roughly, which is, you know, if they want to get through the job quickly, they will do, you know. And that can give, that's one of the reasons why the high is a little more interesting with hand rubbed hash, because you do get a lot of phytochemicals in there that you don't in the pure resin glands, you know, other stuff that's come out. But that can also be why it can be a little harsher on the throat, for example, you know. It's a more rustic product, would be what you would say. It's not as refined as like real classy Afghan hash.
Right.
It's more of a kind of a village product in its real traditional form, you know. But if you make those big balls of it, you've got a real risk that you cut the ball open and it's just going to be full of like white mold or something, you know.
Got it.
Yeah. So I've never seen it actually in a village. It's something that I think Westerners encouraged the people who they were working with in the villages to produce, you know. It was, you know, it's like a marketing, it's a marketing name, you know, Malawi Gold, Thai Stick.
Okay. Another question that came up in the chat was, if you're in another country, where would you, looking to locate hash, how would you start your journey looking for hash?
The one thing I wanted to say, okay, well, it kind of fits into this question.
Yeah.
The whole myth around the temple balls was that they were produced in Buddhist temples in the mountains, right?
Yes.
Buddhists don't fucking make hash. It's not a Buddhist thing, you know. I mean, you may get Buddhist villages where they have the plants, but every Tibetan or Nepali Buddhist that I've spoken to, and they're a minority in Nepal, like most Nepalis are Hindus, you know. Every Buddhist I've spoken to is like, that's a Hindu thing, that whole charas thing. It's not. They all drink whiskey and chang and stuff. They don't. They're not smokers. I have one time I've seen a Tibetan, like in Nepal, a Buddhist on a Buddhist route, who was hand rubbing charas from the like local very wild plants that just happened to grow around where his house was, you know. And he was doing, I think, mostly to sell to people who were smokers who were just coming along that route. I don't remember him making a joint for himself ever. You know, he had it in, because he ran like a kind of a guest house, you know, where you could get a cheap bed for the night and get some food from him on this route up towards the Tibetan border, you know. but it's just not a part of Buddhist culture. Cannabis smoking, in the sense of it's, you have Buddhist countries, obviously like Thailand and Laos, where people smoke and grow ganja, but in Nepal, it's not. It's just not associated. Like if you go into Langtang, for example, has a lot of cannabis growing around. As you, it's always this sort of way. As you go deeper into the mountains, like, so you begin your sort of journey into the mountains, the more alpine, greener, lusher bits, mostly Hindus, right? They have cannabis growing around. It's a traditional crop that in the Pahari villages, that like the sort of highland Hindu villages. As you go higher up and you get closer to Tibet, and the landscape gets much more deserty, drier and more arid. And you get into the more Buddhist areas where you might see a Buddhist gompo, like a Buddhist center, like a monastery or whatever. The people there, for the most part, tend to grow cannabis. They are mostly alcohol drinkers, and they're meat eaters and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so the whole idea that like of a temple ball that's produced in some temple, maybe you have had some particularly kind of corrupted Buddhist gompas where someone's put the monks up to producing charas. It's not impossible, but it's
not likely.
Yeah. It's not likely. It's about as likely as Anglican churches growing skunk. It's not impossible. Could happen, but it's not got much tradition to it,
Yeah. They suddenly see the light and be like, we should be burning this plant.
Yeah, I mean, why not? But yeah, it's should be encouraged, but it's not a thing as far as I know. But so in terms of where you go to look, most of these places have a reputation, that you'll just hear about it. Oh, they've got some really good stuff up there, and those valleys have like a well known for it. So there's basically a reputation. If you, for example, if you were going to Nepal and you just didn't have any real sense of where was a good place to go, when you fly into Kathmandu, first thing you can do, you go to the famous Shiva temples, and Shiva's, it's his plant in the Hindu cosmos, cannabis is his thing. And you go to Pashupatinath, for example, in Kathmandu, which is a huge famous temple complex full of all kinds of just amazing, different, ornately decorated temples, and they have the kind of burning grounds and stuff there for the cremations and so on. Cremation grounds are a place where you often find the sadhus hanging out. It's for kind of various reasons. They often do their practices, like their rituals and meditation practices, in those areas. The tantric Buddhists and the tantric Hindus often do. There's a lot of in fact, the most kind of crazy, it's a whole other podcast episode really, the crazy cannabis practices that are practiced in around cremation grounds, for example. But anyway, if you just wanted to kind of plug into the geography of cannabis, the quickest way in Kathmandu to do it would be to go and just go down to a place like Pashupati, chat to whoever's hanging out down there at the smoking. There'll be around the caves and stuff. They're just like there are sadhus and stuff who hang out around there with just like groups of like guys and sometimes girls, like hanging out, who smoke and stuff, and you can just chat to them like where's good and where's a good place to go, and they'll like just tell you like good places for ganja, good places for charas. It's like everyone knows, and they'll know more about what's around Kathmandu for the most part, unless they're from somewhere over in the far mountains in the west, in which case they'll have everyone knows. It's like if you're into wine, if you're like into wine in France, like just everyone knows the famous places, and it's pretty much, it's just a plant in every bit of the mountains anyway. You'd struggle to find a village that doesn't have it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you speak all these languages, or do you just kind of rough your way through it?
I learned Pali, which is
Okay.
an Indian like Buddhist language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. At university, and then I speak like bad. I learned Lao for a bit, and I'm kind of in the process of learning it. And you know, I can read it and write it and stuff. Um, and I don't speak Hindi. I've never learned it, like Hindi and stuff. But if you know if you know the kind of a lot of the basic words anyway, you can kind of know the basic some of the basic vocabulary as it is. But in South Asia, like Pakistan, India, and stuff, anyway, like there's really just two types of school. There's like the Hindi or the Urdu language schools, and then there's the English language schools. So
Mhm.
a lot of people like the English language, English medium schools, as they would call it, are considered to be the better schools anyway. You know,
Okay.
a lot of people will do their whole education in English. You know,
Oh, okay.
there's always a chunk of there's always going to be someone around who's normally like more educated people who speak good English. You know,
Right.
I have like sadhu friends of mine who speak fluent English. You know,
So there's no need for the phone apps or anything like that. You pretty much can, if you work with the people, you're all right.
yeah, generally you can get by. You know, it's not to say you can find yourself in situations in the mountains where like really no one speaks good English. You know, but it's
Right.
as often as not that's unlikely. You know,
Mhm.
and in Lao and things, yeah, it's useful to have some of the local language. Like I found myself in situations in villages where I've found someone who's growing ganja or has a house where people hang out and smoke, where I've had to do most of the talking in my kind of okayish Lao. You know,
Mm.
you can get by. You know, it's but, you pick up words. It's just from wanting to know and wanting to say stuff. You know, you get the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you live in a
But
place for
you
like
don't have to.
3 years, you just
From
learn
the
their
point.
language, right?
Say again.
I think they say if you live in a place for 3 years, that's long enough to learn the language of the place you're living in.
Yeah, you tune into it after a while, but you do have to make an effort to like actually learn the vocabulary.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to do last year was to actually do some more classes and stuff.
You should get Duolingo. You got Duolingo, right?
Yeah, Duolingo. But the thing is, I was also trying to learn Russian as well. That's what, and Duolingo doesn't have Lao on it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm learning Mandarin on Duolingo.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to, anyway. Trying to.
你听得懂国语吗? Or was it what they say? Zhongwen, right? Zhongwen.
Zhonggu for China.
No, Zhongwen like a Chinese. It would be Guo. Guo is like Zhongguo. It's the country. I speak.
Yeah, Zhongguo. Yeah.
Zhongguo, yeah.
That's China.
Yeah,
unless
it's
you're
not
writing it, because then it's something else when it's written. I see.
Yeah.
Henyi or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, it's writing it. Oh, fucking hell. So,
Yeah, it's a tough
what
one.
made you want to learn Chinese?
Sorry?
What made you want to learn Chinese, particularly?
I don't know, just a random language, and I like the way it sounds.
Right. Yeah.
That's about it, really.
Taiwan is a good place to learn it.
If they speak Mandarin in Thailand.
In Taiwan, yeah.
In Taiwan, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
Yeah. I mean, it's that or Taiwanese mostly.
Yeah, it'd be a nice place to visit. It's just so fucking far away.
It isn't. Yeah, I mean, it isn't close. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a slog to get
there. Other side of the coin, man. And I don't know. And then I wouldn't be able to take my dogs. It's too far for my dogs. I can't leave my dogs. That'd be sad.
You could smuggle them onto the plane, and yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty big dogs, man. I could put him in a suit. They wouldn't know any different. He'd just sit there with a hat on in his seat,
Yeah, they're very well behaved, Yeah.
Do you want any nuts? Shit. Well, we should wrap this up then, because it's coming up to midnight now in the UK. I'm sure you're aware, because you are here in the UK.
Yeah,
and it was a late one last night for you on Chad's show as well, wasn't it? What time did that
Yeah, was it
4 late? Yeah,
4 hours. Yeah,
4.5 hours. The show was, man.
Yeah.
You're getting around on all these podcasts. Are you going to be on any more in the near future where people can find you
on? Not that I know of. No one's got in touch with me.
Have you been on Growcast?
Say again.
Have you been on Growcast? Yeah.
No, I haven't. No, I mean, if you know people who might, be interested, then like, yeah, I'm. As long as I've got a good internet connection, which is pretty easy most places these days, then
Yeah, it's
yeah.
my fucking problem this week. God damn.
It really.
Yeah, what
It's
happened
suffered
there?
a few times, Mackie, you know.
Yeah,
sure
I
the
mean, it's been
feds-
fine for this one. Yeah, maybe it's the feds tapping in. It's
I think it's the
it's the
feds, man.
Russians. It's the
Ooh,
Russians.
paranoia.
It's the Chinese.
Oh God,
Even
that's what it
worse.
is. You've been learning Chinese.
That's it,
Yeah,
man.
the
What's
feds
the
are all
name of
over
that
you.
fucking test they do? You know, it's not the Stroop test, is it? You know, when they have to find out if you're a spy, they will
Right.
write the names of colors, but have them in a different color and shit. So you know, if you read it in a foreign language and you know what red, blue, and yellow is, then you slip up and make mistakes where you're saying the words. I think it's the Stroop test. Can anybody remember? Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
don't know. My spycraft isn't what it used to be.
I know what you're talking about. I've not seen that in a very long time, though.
Yeah. But it is one of these thoughts I have in the back of my head, you know, of all this trouble going on with China, and then I'm learning Chinese. Will they think I'm a spy? You know?
Yeah, you're on their watch list now, man. They
Yeah.
saw you downloading Duolingo, and they're all over you now.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So where can people are obviously going to want to check out your website to find out the seeds, and that's just the realseedcompany.com, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And what have I uploaded there recently? Is some new thing. I've got a few new Lauland races in, and
Cool.
if people are looking for like traditional hemp plants, I've got some Hmong hemp plants, which we put on for a pretty cheap price, like a pretty cheap price. Sorry, from a quite remote bit of northeastern Laos where it's grown there. These are like East Asian style fiber plants, which might be just fun to grow for fun, you know. And probably are going to be of more interest to that preservation program that I was talking about. But and yeah, I've made like a discount section recently where you could get basically a really nice representation of, you know, Hindu Kush things and Himalayan things and Southeast Asian ganja, all for, you know, I think very, very fair prices. So I'm talking like less than a quarter of the price of the same thing elsewhere on other sites that do land races. You know,
Nice.
you know,
Yeah.
for the amount that people are selling the same things as what I have, more, yeah, basically the same, you know, the same idea. I'm doing them for like less than a quarter of the price in that discount section, you know. So if you are
Well,
buying some race seeds, definitely check that out and save yourself some money. You can have a really nice collection for the same
that's
price.
right. The collection, that's what people want to be thinking. Even if you're thinking, oh, I think I'll stick to growing my big bud of blue cheese. This is like a
Yeah.
Pokemon card collection, man, where you can go and collect all these different Pokemons from all these different places. Man,
It's a better than a Pokemon card collection. What
you
you
know what I
talking?
mean? Like, look at this, got these 100 seeds. It's like this one's from this place in India. This one's from Thailand. You know, just little backstories on them and shit. You got to do it, Angus. It'll be a mission, but man.
Yeah, and one thing you can do as well is like if you are working indoors and it is inconvenient to grow these traditional plants indoors, one of my favorite seed outfits was a guy called Afro Pips. If you remember that from the he was around in the sort of early 2000s, and he had this collection. He had like 4 or 5 really good African land races, but he also did these these F1s or these like 2-way or 3-way hybrids with them. So, you know, Malawi Gold crossed with like the Dutch Passion Blueberry, and what was it? A sort of some kind of sweet skunk. I forget who it was who made it, and he called that like Malbury was his name for it, but it was like a Malawi blueberry sweet skunk.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
And it was really easy to grow indoors. It fucking grew itself because it had this incredible hybrid vigor, and you got pretty good yields off it. And you also got quite a nice kind of a midway point between the really lovely positivity of the Malawi high and then the sort of delicious flavors of a sort of a blueberry DP blueberry sweet skunk mixed with the Malawi, and it, you know, really like I never smelled anything else like it anywhere else. And just, yeah, you know, now that I know people are on the case with preserving all these land races, I'm much more relaxed about people just like using them for making fun crosses, you know, because they do. It's a way of bringing in some like really unusual aromas that you get when you cross these to a nice modern strain, and then you also have a bit more like, you know, power in there when it's, because, you know, like if you know, Himalayan landrace isn't very good for smoking as bud unless you're not too fussed about potency. But yeah, you get a really nice combination of strength and aromas and buzz, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, you can pick up like a 12 pack for like, you know, some of them I'm doing for like, I think 12 quid more or less, you know, and
Wow.
yeah, you just like let them drop a bit of pollen on some blueberry or something, you know, and you've got like some really, you know, lovely effects. You know, those Afro Pips hybrids were really nice. He kicked the bucket around about 2010, Jim. So they all disappeared. There was someone who was a big fan of their work who did take over the website and do some knockoffs, but they seem to have given up on it now, I think, as far as I know. But yeah, he had some great stuff.
It's awesome, man. You've fucking got loads of shit on your website. It's fucking. If anybody wants to start a seed collection, that's the place to go, man. Start off with that shit.
That's
awesome.
If you're a really serious, in the sense of serious, as in like a crop breeder who happens to be listening to this and has like several acres that they can put to grow cannabis on, and is you know, you will actually in due course be able to just with the 100 accessions that I've already given to this project, once they've maintained them all, you would be able to put in an application and get the seeds for free. You know, you've got to be like someone who's going to be, you know, credentialed, licensed grower who they know for sure is actually doing a project that's going to take generations of breeding and be you know, done on scale, you know. So I mean, if you're just growing them for fun, I don't think you'll be able to get them. But in due course, once they've maintained it all, you will just be able to get some of these Afghans and Lao things that I've collected in bulk for free, you know. Nice. I know that sounds nuts, but I'm not putting myself out of business, just to make it clear. You know, I do. It's in a few years or so that will be possible as well. You know, so there'll be a whole kind of, hopefully, kind of new wave of strains that will eventually come along in the next decade or so, as people do some like new original work at scale. I hope. Yeah,
pretty cool. You'll be leaving a hell of a legacy right there, man. Plenty of
I hope
really
so.
nice genetics behind. Yeah,
I hope so. It would be fun to like really, like, you know, expand the kind of palette of or the menu of strains out again. You know. To a whole kind of new level of diversity and you know, get some of the different effects and aromas going on. You know,
for sure. I'm all about that. You're tempting me. I don't have much space at all to deal with. You're tempting me right now.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? I mean, even
you know,
a lot of these big successful seed banks that do a lot of the internet trade, you know, they don't actually don't have much space to work in. They often work with several different people working on one strain, you know, in relatively small spaces, and that's the challenge that we're just kind of getting beyond that now. We're getting to a point where you could theoretically do some really large scale selection. Yeah.
Nice, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. And the work
you
continue to do, man. It's fucking awesome. It's always good to speak to you as well. You know,
thanks, and thanks
so
for inviting me on,
man.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, and thanks for like asking, you know, and making this all possible. And it's a real honor and a privilege to be able to talk
man,
about.
Privilege is all ours, mate. You know, you just have so much knowledge for this shit. Like, wow, you know, everybody's baffled right now about how much you know and how experienced you are in the world of cannabis, man. It's very cool. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, pleasure's ours and shit.
Well, thanks. I mean, you know, I hope what I've done is inspire some people to go and go and experience these places firsthand themselves.
Chilbert's going with you, isn't he? Next year, we're taking a camera.
Yeah, with the camera. Yeah. No, I mean seriously, Chilbert and anyone who you know, if you've got the photography skills, that's my one criteria. You know, that and being pretty laid back and resilient would be my three qualifications that I'd be looking for, because I would love to get more material on film. You know, one of these days I'm hoping to persuade my brother to come and do another trip. You know, as well, because yeah, it's demanding. It's hard work, but it is also really good fun. You know,
no doubt, man.
Can be done, and it should be done. That's what this project I've been talking about is looking for as well. If you've got good photos from these places documenting all of the traditional culture, a lot of people are interested to see that now, because people are getting more and more aware. There's like the big discussion now in the hemp world and in the you know, marijuana quotes world is the biodiversity problem. You know, they're all talking about it at these kind of conferences and so on. You know, it's like, fuck, we've got to get what's left of the traditional plants preserved and maintained into germplasm collections, because if it all disappears, we're going to be really screwed. And then disappearing with that is the traditional culture of it. You know, in the villages, that is on the way out in many places as the economy changes. You know, there's not much care being taken by the governments in places like India. They've introduced hemp into bits of the Himalaya now. It's really short-sighted, you know.
And that's going to end up pollinating the weed out there.
Yeah, it's not good, and the same has been done in many places. I mean, Cambodia, anywhere where there's like an expat or a tourist community, you've got like everything's been hybridized. There are places that are just that much more remote and that much more disconnected that have meant that you can still go and get the real thing even in Cambodia, but you've got to go well off the beaten track. You've got to go into places that are really pretty hard work to travel in, you know, stinky, dirty hotels, you know, rough food that's not clean, and you know, I mean that sounds really fussy, but it's like it's fine for a few days. Once you've got into a few months, it's a different quality. Yeah, it's not like going to the North Pole or anything, but it's like it's still quite hard work, you know. And anyway, yeah, it's still around, but yeah, like thank God finally, like people who are in the position to actually preserve this and maintain it have taken note and have committed the resources to doing it. So you know, we can all kind of relax a bit, or I can relax, and you know, encourage people to just have fun with, like I say, making like, you know, cross Nanda Devi to, I don't know, you know, like I say, blueberry, or you know, flow, or like one of those really nice buzzy type strains, and you'd end up with something really, really great, lovely hash, you know, for example.
Yum. Be nice if you could bring some home with you, but you can't, can you?
I used to like I'd be really silly, you know. I would never carry it with me on the plane, and I certainly wasn't into like the whole fucking ass egg thing that some people used to do from
prison pocket, you know.
Yeah, not my cup of tea, but you know, I'd have some around, you know, and I just got to a point now where I just don't think it's worth it, you know. I just can't see that.
It isn't, man. It's not worth it. But yeah, so let us know when you go on your journey over there next year, because that's going to be, get more footage, man. Get your footage online as well, so we can see that.
Oh,
bro.
this year, yeah, but I'll be there. I'll be there as of the end of this month, and
nice.
and yeah, I'm just shit with cameras and stuff. Otherwise, I'd be taking more photos myself. But I'm my ex, the Russian ex, brilliant photographer, you know, and I'm always trying to encourage her to come and take pictures. You know, she's a really good portrait photographer as well. And that was my plan, you know, last year, and of course it all just you know, high intensity traveling together stuff is a perfect way to have a breakup, you know, if you
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, the world's gone a bit crazy up that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's you know, like you can just. Yeah, I'm aware you wanted to draw it to a close, but to say you can just if you ever go traveling with someone, it doesn't matter who they are, if they best friend or someone who you're generally have a really easy relationship with, you can just find yourself in the most stupid arguments, just like
That's a
about
fact.
nothing, nothing, and it's just like suddenly in this furious row about absolutely nothing at all, and it's like traveling just optimizes that in some situations, especially when you've got to do a lot of like public transport or something
Yeah,
quite
you're tired and
stressful.
homesick, hungry,
Yeah,
probably
that
had the
that kind of
shits for 3 days because you're in India,
the only solution to that is cook for yourself. Incidentally, that's what I used to do for
Mhm.
years and years until I got a constitution of iron and I'd finally kind of broken through but yeah, I used to just bring a rice cooker, like just those you can plug an electric rice cooker and just boil your own veg and rice and bung some spices in there and just do it like that. For years I did that because I just got sick of getting ill.
Yeah.
Touch wood, I've done relatively well in the last few years.
Yeah, you're gonna go back over there. It's gonna be the same, Just be careful what you eat, man.
Struck down by
He's
the
gonna
daily
jinx
belly.
himself.
Yeah.
Damn. It takes some getting used to, I bet. But yes, man, let's wrap this shit up then, because it's nearly midnight.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
So we'll let you go then, Angus, and then we'll wave off to the audience and we'll let them
Great.
go as well. But we'll let you go first. So yeah, man, thanks again for coming to join us.
Yeah,
And,
thanks again.
I'll see if I'll get in touch with Jordan. We're speaking to him this week
Mm.
and get you
We'll
up on the
speak to him on
Growcast.
Thursday.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah. All right. Thanks,
Cool.
then, guys. All right.
Take care, Angus.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.
Later, Angus. All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks a lot, man.
Everybody wave.
Appreciate it. As we do. There you go.
Sweet. He's had some journey. Lots of cool places, man. Lots of cool stories. And I hope that's inspired some people to go out there and do the whole India thing. It's something that I might do in 10 years' time. You know what I mean? When my kids are older and shit. I can't take them on that kind of expedition. And you'd want to go out there for a month, wouldn't you? You want to really go
Yeah,
out
you
there and
don't,
see
that's
it.
not a 2-day or 3-day little holiday, that. No.
Mhm.
You want to spend some weeks and actually find what you're looking for.
I think Chilbert's going soon. Chilbert's going to be on the mission. But yeah, I'm going to go on Google Earth and check out some of those places, man. What's everybody else saying? But yes, good show. Damn good show. And, apologies for the technical error that happened in the middle there. It seemed to be fine since then.
I was hoping it wasn't going to go down again. It buffered a couple times during the second bit of it, but lost a few frames, but not too much.
That's it. It will survive. The recording will survive.
Yes, it will.
So yeah, that's the music kicking in there for 15 minutes. But thank you to everybody for coming to join us on this fine Tuesday, just a random stream and the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it, man. I hope you enjoyed the questions and shit. I hope you're good and high, and I hope you're all thinking about going over there for some ganja holiday.
Really?
In Ireland, in India,
Ireland.
in Thailand, No, you can't smoke. They call it the Emerald Isle, but you can't smoke over there. You can, but you'll get in trouble for doing it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it sounds like a good expedition, man. Let's see some threads in the cannabis tourism section of Percys Grow Room, and let us know about your holidays.
Do we have a cannabis tourism section over there?
Yeah, I think so. Or did I delete it? Maybe
I don't know. It would be a good section to have because a lot of people are doing it. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure we have cannabis tourism. Checking
it would be
right
good. I
there,
mean, I've never put anything in it, and I do a lot of cannabis tourism. I haven't put anything up there.
Yeah, it's a reasonably new session. It came within the last 6 months.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. And check it out. Let us know about your ganja holidays in the it's just where I said. I've forgotten already because I'm tired and stoned. But yes. We'll catch you on what we got on Thursday. Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
They want to catch us tomorrow on my Brian and Marco show.
That's right.
FCP, Brian Marco.
And then
back it up. We'll be on there theoretically, at least.
Yes. And then the Thursday, Jordan River's coming to see us. And then on Saturday, we're going to go see Jordan River. So, busy weekend. Busy week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, of course, we got Sunday. So, yeah.
Yeah, Sunday.
4 more
so
streams.
We'll catch you on the next one then, everybody. Stay high and stay safe. And thanks again to Angus for coming to join us. Always a damn good show.
Damn.
good show.